agenda is changes in the zoning law. How many here are going to speak out on this, so I can get a time frame here? Two. How much time will it take you about?
Timed it probably about 15 minutes, depending on what kind of input we get.
Okay.
Very good. Hello all, my name is Chris Brothers. I'm an independent candidate for town supervisor, in case anybody didn't know. I'd like to start off by thanking the board for the opportunity to speak, and the public that's here for caring enough about the community to be here. Now, I realize that this is a hearing on a new proposed law, so my comments about misconduct and inappropriate behavior from the board not related to this law will be addressed after this hearing. First, I'd like to address some of the responses you have given in the past at public meetings where this has been discussed. And there have been several meetings that we've already had in case anybody missed them. You stated on the record that you did not write this proposed law. These are recommendations from the Clinton County Planning Board and Glenn Cutter. And now I'd like to give you a quote from the Planning Board meeting on August 30th of this year. And I quote, "A resident can have 2 unregistered vehicles on their property. If they have 3 to 5, they have to be hidden behind a fence. Over 5, it is then a junkyard." I asked the Planning Board at this meeting if they would stand behind their interpretation of this, and they said yes. And another quote from that meeting that was very interesting is that the town board has the option of changing their recommendations before presenting this law to us. So taking these quotes at face value, let's delve into the reason behind this new town law number 2. First, you deal with outdoor water stoves. It is on the record that this stemmed from one complaint in West Chazy. I commend you on the diligent effort you made at lowering the setback requirements on this law. Unfortunately, you have effectively tried to circumvent any grandfather laws with your last paragraph that requires variances. Thus, I have a problem with this law. The only problem I find in your new junkyard section, 550, is the changing of the setback from 50 feet to 200 feet. The planning board has to take the heat on that one, but you should be aware as the board that no junkyards are presently in compliance with this new requirement, and you have no clause that makes them seek a variance to keep their fence. This is called selective enforcement and leaves the town open to lawsuits from the outdoor water stoves people. Next, you have section 555, your new Enviro section. I am not going to get into specifics on the legality of this one, but per Bobby West, he has no written complaints about Enviro. I would like to point out, though, that this was the only section of our new law that was discussed when it was reviewed and approved by the County Planning Board last week. I wanted to get that in before you had the opportunity to tell me you have your approval now, because the last time you were going to vote on this, the County Planning Board denied you, and nobody bothered to tell the general public that. You just said that the County Planning Board had some recommendations, and I believe that came from Mr. Coffey. Furthermore, my appeal to the Planning Board will be reviewed at the next general regularly scheduled meeting of the Clinton County Planning Board, where they may give you further suggestions on this law. It seems odd to me that the town with the least enviro problems is going to be the guinea pig for the county. I suggest you discuss this with other towns and get them to sign on, so they would be just as liable if this is brought to court. Okay, anyways, when we get to page 6, Article 7, definitions, which most of you won't be able to know because you don't have a copy of it. They will provide you with one, but if you want to read afterwards, Article 6, page 6, Article 7, under definitions, they're proposing to add a new definition to junk vehicle. Now we're at the major bone of contention of mine. This simply states one unregistered vehicle is considered junk. Now, Bobby, you're here somewhere, right? So you can correct me if I'm wrong. And the board can put the spin on it that they like, but what it says in black and white is one unregistered motor vehicle is junk. And this simple change in wording has completely changed our zoning laws as far as cars are concerned. Now, remembering what the planning board said in my earlier quote, which I hope you didn't miss, Mr. Dajna.
I did.
I would like to quote some of you board members, and I'll give you the front page so you can see the copy after. Give Mr. Green no, the one at the page I handed you with the planning board quote on it so that they can see it. And give it to Mr. Dashna afterwards. Okay, so remembering everybody else can remember the quote I gave earlier from the planning board. So now I want to quote some of the board members. And we're going to start with Staub. And I quote, "We are going to be passing new laws. We are going to be enforcing them. We are going to clean up this town." That doesn't sound like you can still have two unregistered vehicles to me. And Chazy stated, here in this room, put it in the garage. If we can't see it, it won't be a problem. Now, as a town board, you are forced by state law to adopt resolutions and laws to conform with your town comprehensive plan. And you're all aware of this, I already gave you the paper. From the quotes I have used, it seems to me that you and the planning board are seeing things very differently, as far as our town comprehensive plan is concerned anyways. And as a matter of fact, Staub, you suggested at the budget hearing meeting last week that you believed you were basing your vote on an update to the town's comprehensive plan that doesn't even exist. And I'm suggesting here that based on the statements I've heard from you and Kathy, you are basing your vote on this law, on your beliefs of where this town should be going, not on the comprehensive plan devised from the general public's input in 1991. Not only that, but from your own acknowledgement, you are going to be making new laws, and laws is pluralized, I might add. And to say that, you must have some idea what they are that you're going to be passing. Are these new ideas for a brighter tomorrow, or are they just simply ideas that reek of conflict of interest when you factor in the fact that you are the only used car lot in town? I suggest the latter and ask that you refrain from any further conversation on this law or voting on this law. Now, for the legality of what you're trying to pull here, I must point out that I have reviewed and compared the different laws you are proposing here under one heading. With the Tug Hill Commission's report from January of this year, I find some striking similarities between Tug Hill's report and your new law. The difference I find is they suggest that you use the title Local Law Regulating Junk Storage. You didn't do that. You opted to call it a modification law to hide the real intent from the people. You also opted to include this with the Enviro law and the outdoor wood stoves. The enacting clause is spelled out in the municipal home rules laws, and this is to specifically require proper public notice of what you intend to do with your new law. You have failed to comply with the law here by generalizing your enacting clause, making the law invalid. Well, wait, I'm not done. The municipal home rule law also spells out under section 20 that every local law shall embrace one subject only. This is in subsection 3, I believe, Mr. Coffey, if you needed any help finding that. The Tug Hills Commission report gives an example of the purpose of this law. I can't find this example in our new law anywhere. And I know why. Because you don't want anyone to know that you have to enact laws to further the goals of the comprehensive plan, which is exactly what it states in their example. The only purpose I see written into this new law is on page 1, under section 485, and again, you guys can't see that, but the only place it says purpose in the new law is on page 1, under section 485, and it states, the purpose of this law is to regulate the use of outdoor water stoves. Now, saying one unregistered motor vehicle is junk doesn't pertain to me as being anything having to do with water stoves. And this is also blatant disregard of the law and makes this proposed law illegal. And what is even more appalling is that it does not include a standard severability clause. All the points I have brought forward point to shoddy handling of this issue. Maybe you need to hire another lawyer to advise you. Or wait, if I'm elected, I might do it correctly. But you can bet I won't be writing any law that is going to take the rights away from the common man, rights that were afforded to him by our Constitution, which is what you're trying to do here. Jumble a bunch of information together to enact what should be 3 separate laws, all intended to take away our rights. Just 2 more thoughts from me on this matter, and I'll give up the floor. First, I have handed out examples of the Tug Hill Commission's notice to comply, which I haven't had a chance to do, but anybody that wants one, I have a whole pile of them. I did come prepared to give everybody one. This goes along with their Section 3 suggestion that you allow the sale of motor vehicles through the means of a permit and can be found online at www.tughill.org. Then if I haven't gone along enough and pointed out enough for you to turn away from this insane notion of trying to cram this down our throats, let me point out New York State Town Law, Section 272-A. Under this section, it is spelled out that your town comprehensive plan shall have in it the maximum intervals at which the adopted plan shall be reviewed. Looking at the top of page 3 of your plan, which I'm sure nobody has one of those either, but I have one you can look at afterwards. On the top of page 3, it clearly states that your maximum at 10 years. Now, I'm not a rocket scientist, but I did graduate from Chazy Central Rural School, and I think Mr. Pell would be horrified if I couldn't add 10 years to 1991 and come up with 2001. We're in 2004 right now, making our plan 3 years past due. You can't zone according to a plan that is invalid, and I'm sure that your lawyer here has had ample opportunity to review this since I informed you all a week ago. I just hope he has also had the opportunity to inform you that violations of ordinances set down in New York State town law, and I believe it's under section 268, but you can correct me if I'm wrong, that the violation as far as the board is pertained is considered a misdemeanor, and each week's continued violation shall constitute a separate additional violation. So if you want misdemeanors on your record, go ahead and vote. Thank you. I'll shut up now until the regular meeting starts, and that's when it gets good. Thank you all.
Address your remark on comprehensive planning. That was done in 91. From what I can see and looking around town, I don't think right now we actually need one. We're working on the present one that we had done in 91. And if you want a nutshell view of what comprehensive planning, the way I'm looking at it, you've had changes, yes. You've had a decrease in businesses. You've had a decrease in farming. You would like to, you look at expansion. You've had some housing in sporadic areas. A few years ago, Baker Road, Ashley Road, then it jumped up to 22, where it's presently still the progressive area in town, down on the lake shore with reconstruction, remodeling, not too many major projects going on. Do we need comprehensive planning, another one done? Possibly. I don't see an emergency in it at the present time because of the reduction in business throughout all 3 communities, and I can run down and give you all those. And that's my view on that, and now I would like to turn it over to Mr. Coffey to answer the...
No, I don't think it's appropriate to answer. This gentleman has a right to make a statement. I think the law is fine as it is, and I think the board can vote. I don't think this is an open forum on that. He's expressed his views, and perhaps others would want to.
If I might follow up though, Bucket, now that you've said that, it is recommended that a land use plan be updated periodically in order to take into account new growth trends which we eventually had, or other changes. I explained the law to you here as to what the state says the law is and you have to do. You guys can do whatever it is that you want to do tonight. You're probably going to anyways. But You must know that in this comprehensive plan, and this is what a comprehensive plan is here, it says, a suitable time frame for an update would be about 5 to 10 years. The state says you have to have a maximum, so I would believe that when it says 5 to 10 years or sooner, that the 10 years would be your maximum. You did not comply with that. You're going to be passing laws, and you're going to make this town liable. And I hope you're doing it for the right reasons.
Alan, you wanted to speak.
Yeah, it's going to be real brief. I'm pretty nervous. I just want to say a few things from the August 11th letter you got from the Department of Environmental Control from Mr. Steinberg, saying that there's 35 sites in New York State that produce Enviro. And Enviro's been made in New York State for 20 years, and there's never been any economical, environmental, or any human problem with Enviro. And I really wonder why you want to open the town of Chazy up to a lawsuit by a couple of big companies by regulating it the way you want to regulate it. You know, I'm just basically wondering why you want to be the first town to put yourselves on the fire for the Clinton County Planning Board.
Okay, anyone else want to speak on the zoning law changes?
Okay. I should have read the zoning law from here because I heard some rumors.
State your name and
Oh, Dave Bayshard. And what I heard tonight is surprising if that's the fact, that you have one unregistered vehicle, it's considered junk. I mean, a lot of people have their car and sell their car, it's unregistered for a while. I mean, that's ridiculous. Yeah, I mean, we're here to live. I mean, that kind of regulation. I mean, people should have that kind of regulation.
anyone else?
Mr. Dashnow address that?
Mr. Dyson, you want to speak
Could you address that?
out on that?
That the one
you explain-
unregistered vehicle does not constitute
Can you explain
junk?
the definition of a junk vehicle to them?
Want me to read the definition of a junk vehicle is any motor vehicle, whether automobile, bus, trailer truck, tractor, motorhome, motorcycle, all-terrain vehicle, mini bicycle, or snowmobile, or any other device originally intended for transportation which meets any of the following conditions. It is unlicensed. B, it is either abandoned, wrecked, stored, discarded, dismantled, or partly dismantled, or it is not in any condition for legal use upon the highway. With respect to any motor vehicle not required to be licensed or motor vehicle not usually used on public highways, the fact that such motor vehicle has remained unused for more than 6 months and is not in a condition to be removed under its own power shall be presumed evidence that such motor vehicle is a junk motor vehicle.
How many are they allowed?
That depends. There are several sections under it. If it's a junkyard, or if it's an item. Do you have your zoning law?
It's not a junkyard.
No, it's not a junkyard, it's the keeping of junk, so if you
How many of
have,
those vehicles are they allowed to have in their yard?
that would be under the keeping of junk. And the keeping of junk basically is if it's visible from the street, then it's a violation. And this is a very ambiguous situation with that definition. It's more of a visibility situation. If it's fenced in, behind brush, it's not visible, then it's not a problem. When it becomes a problem, then the definitions start falling into place. So it's really not a cut and dry situation. And there's nothing that's really changing under the new zoning law other than the fact that before, the definition had to meet all 4 characteristics, all 4 of those criteria. Now we're saying it has to meet any of those criteria. And it was our intention that the original intent of the law was any of the, not all 4. Because it's almost impossible to meet all 4 of those. I don't know if that answers your question, or, so the law really is not changing. It's just the definition of what junk vehicle is being changed.
Can I try and understand this? So you're saying one vehicle parked on your, and the plates are off it, I'm in violation of Chazy's town zoning, right?
No, if it's after 6 months, if it's visible from the highway, if it's more or less a nuisance, when it becomes a nuisance, then it becomes a problem, and then it has to be dealt with.
I think the thing is unregisterable. You can't register a car without a windshield. You can't register a car without headlights. You can't register a car without doors. You can't register a car without certain things that brakes, tires, whatever. If it's unregisterable, that's junk.
Some people can't unregister a car because they don't have the money at the time for insurance.
Is it registerable?
That's not what it says. And unregistered.
That's what I'm saying.
That's
What
your
I'm
take.
saying,
That's what
if
your
it's
take is.
unregisterable, it's junk.
That's your take, and that's not what it says in the new definition.
I didn't say what it said in the definition, that's what I said, Chris. I said it should say unregisterable, and that would cover everything.
It should say. So then, Mr. Lewiston, you're in favor of them changing this law again to
I'm not in favor of changing anything, I just gave my opinion.
They're not changing the law, they're changing the
The
drainage.
law is not changing. The law is remaining intact. The only thing that's changing is the definition from junk vehicles. And the old definition,
This is what I was talking about as far as spend before, because you just said 6 months. The 6-month clause in there pertains to vehicles that aren't unregisterable, that aren't normally registered on the road for use. If you'd like to read it again.
okay, one more, the junk vehicle definition is the only thing that's being changed. The old definition said which meets all of the following conditions. What we've removed is that which meets all of the following conditions and said any of the conditions. Now, it's practically...
And the first one is?
The first one, it is unlicensed.
You can't have a car in your yard.
So if it's unlicensed, that's
It
it.
doesn't have a plate on it.
But it has time to have more than 6 months, doesn't it?
No, stop, you're incorrect.
No.
You need to read it again.
If it's a nuisance, so if your neighbor calls and says, that's bothering me, then someone's gonna come in and
The
enforce it. I'm not
6-month
sure.
clause in there is for vehicles not normally registered on the road, which would be like Dutch Rovers' tractors. If a tractor sits on the side of the road for 6 months, and Mr. Rovers hasn't used it to harvest anything, then if it's not able to move on its own power, then it's junk. That's the only thing that 6-month clause means in there, and I really can't sit out here and believe that you guys can't grasp what that says. So I would have to assume that this is just more spend.
Can I attempt to answer this? The definitions are just that, definitions. Definitions are not the law. The definitions are trying to bring clarity to words that are used in the law. Now, if we use one section
It
which...
changes the old definition of the law. The
Uh,
old way the law reads.
Yes, it can, in the fact that, well, let's just look at keeping of junk. Section 455 says, "No junk as defined herein shall be located so it is visible for any public road, from any public road or adjacent lot." Nothing's changed. Junk is in there. Doesn't say junk vehicles. So we go into junk vehicles. That is in the definition of junkyards. I don't believe I've seen junk vehicles anywhere in the keeping of junk. So those are the laws. If you have a junkyard, if you have one, if you have 2 vehicles in a yard, then, or it's 5 constitutes a junkyard, right? Right. So if you have 5 vehicles, it constitutes a junkyard. Then we get into junk vehicles. Then you look at the definition of what a junk vehicle is. That's where it pertains. It's the definition, it's not the law that's being changed. It's
Just the definition.
just the definition is being changed and how it's applied in that law.
So then
It's
the
for
definition doesn't apply to anybody else other than junkyards?
No,
So what would
it
apply to
applies
this?
anywhere it refers to junk vehicle in here. And I'm probably wrong, but I think that the only place that it applies to junk vehicles when it's talking about junkyards.
Well, Mr. West read us at the planning board meeting a section of the zoning book that stated there is to be no junk visible from the road.
This is true.
So now if one unregistered vehicle is junk, there is not to be one unregistered vehicle visible from the road, then we have to hide all of our unregistered vehicles. And when we hide up to 5 of them, then we have to go get a permit to have a junkyard. But I don't want to hide one. And I don't think that the majority of the people in the town of Chazy want to hide their cars. And as the Tug Hill Commission report that came out in January, which I believe this is all based on, states, you can make different suggestions and allow people to still sell their cars in the front yard, but you guys didn't opt to write that into this new law.
There's nothing stopping anybody from
No.
selling their vehicle in the front yard. That's,
If it doesn't have plates on it,
if
Is it registerable? If you're gonna sell it, is it registerable?
it's not what it says.
It doesn't apply to the
It
junk
says it
yard.
is unlicensed. So, but this is
It
junk
says it's
vehicle.
unlicensed.
Okay.
One unlicensed motor vehicle is considered junk. And if your zoning book says no junk is to be visible from the road, then what you're saying is, we can break the zoning laws if we're gonna sell a car.
Okay, I'm not sure that I know of any place in there that has a law governing selling a vehicle, licensed, unlicensed, otherwise, or
No,
selling
that's
anything.
my point.
Now, if you had a regular, selling vehicles on a regular basis, then we'd have to say you're probably operating a motor vehicle shop of some sort. But I think you're reading into this a lot more than it is. What's...
Which is what everybody would like people to believe until after they pass the law.
What we're proposing tonight is just changing that definition as one part.
And the reason for changing that definition would be?
It was our belief that the original intent was not to qualify all 4 of those because you couldn't, it's almost impossible to have a situation where there's something would be defined as a junk vehicle, meeting all 4 of those. There is junk out there that meets 1, 2, 3, some of them might meet 4.
And while you were going through the comprehensive plan, at what point did you come up with the conclusion that that was the original intent? What led you to that belief?
There are still several board members that were part of the original planning. I had been discussed for several meetings. This has been discussed probably for the last 7 or 8 years as a potential change during a next amendment. The law gets changed constantly. These are amendments. And what's happening tonight is they're not voting on new laws.
You're seeing it as an amendment.
These are amendments.
I'm seeing it as a new law.
It's not. It's not a new law. And with the Tug Hill Commission, when they're discussing junk as a separate law,
So you've seen that?
towns can opt for doing a junk law. What we've done in the town of Chazy is we've opted to include junk in the zoning law. So the enforcement, the ramifications of it are the same. It's just, it's in part of the zoning law, it's not a separate standalone law. But what's going to happen, what the vote is going to be on are amendments to the zoning law.
And that right there is what I call spin.
Can I say something?
Yes, you can.
Okay. Has everybody on the board heard enough on this subject? And is there anyone else other than those that have spoken that want to speak?
I got one follow-up short question. If you have an unregistered vehicle, do you need a permit to sell that vehicle on your property?
No.
Okay, is nothing else to be said on zoning changes? Someone make a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Don't have to.
To close it?
Okay, we close the public hearing on changes in zoning law, and we'll go to the next one. Public, anyone wants to address the board?
Yes. You want my name and address? I'm Richard Carpenter. I'm chairman of the Board of Fire Commissioners. Also with me here tonight are Richard Matat and Bill Kuki, which are also on board. We want to address the board tonight on the water system and the fire hydrants. On September 2nd, the commissioners wrote a letter to the board asking them about specific conditions on the water system, mainly 2 hydrants that are broken and non-usable, And also, the improper maintenance, in our case that we're specifically concerned about, is the flushing of the hydrants. To the best of our knowledge, the water system has been in about 3 years, right? And the old system has been flushed only once. And that was back when Randy Lemire was, I don't know, maintenance man or operator or whatever he was. But anyway, about a year ago, the fire department applied to the ISO, which is Insurance Services Organization, and we got the rating of our fire department and in the town lowered from a 9 to a 5. Now this means that every homeowner that pays insurance premiums saw a reduction in their insurance premium. Unfortunately, the raise probably ate up the reduction, but anyway. Part of this ISO rating is based on the water system and the hydrant capacity. I don't know if the ISO organization has come in and rechecked the water system, but since we got the lower reduction, the fire department has been audited twice. This is probably just because we're new and they want to make sure that we're keeping our equipment and our training and everything in shape. I don't know what would happen if the auditors were to come back in town and recheck the water system right now. It would probably fail with 2 hydrants inoperable, plus they can tell just by opening the hydrants whether or not the system is being periodically flushed. I'm not sure, I'm not 100% sure, but about 95% sure. I think the water system is supposed to be flushed twice a year. Every hydrant has to be flushed and flow at least 10 minutes. We asked the town board to give us a reply in writing on this matter, and over a month has gone by and we haven't heard anything. So we figured we'd come as a body tonight
When you get done, I'll address it.
maybe make the whole town board and everybody aware that there are 2 broken hydrants. One's over here on the Dupree Road by Bimbo Trombley's, and one's down on the North Farm Road by Jan Davis's house. Plus, every time we try and train on the hydrants, Bucket gets all kinds of calls for dirty water. Well, if the system were flushed properly, you wouldn't have it.
Anyway, answer to your question. We're very aware of the hydrants. The hydrants were flushed this summer because we had a problem on the Fisk Road. And we took care of that. Originally, you say Randy flushed every hydrant. I don't know if that was done.
Yes.
Every hydrant, but anyway.
Don't forget Bucket.
Just a minute. I let you talk.
Okay,
I didn't interrupt.
Okay.
Don't
Sorry,
interrupt me.
I apologize.
We have addressed, we know about the hydrants, the ones that aren't working properly. And we're aware of the rusty water. We're trying to pinpoint exactly why we're getting these pockets of rusty water. We had leads, people we used before to do digging for us. We've been in touch with them all summer. They're gonna get back to us. They don't get back to us. But at present, we're trying somebody else. We are very aware of the rusty water. We are very aware of your pumps not working. Some things that you may not be aware of, or the other people. The water tower has been hit 3 times by lightning. We're working it manually. And by working it manually, it's not an easy task, because we have to almost guess what's in the tower because our readings aren't there. We have to go strictly by water pressure. So when somebody uses a lot of water, we'd like to know about it. And if the fire department, in case of emergency, I got hollered at the other night for this. They said, well, you mean we can't use the hydrants in case of a fire? I am not that naive. I did not spend 25 years in the fire department to not know that. You open them when you gotta use them. But when you're training on them, we like to know it so that we can let our people know, because we are aware of the rusty water. We're still working on what's causing it. But when we have time to let the public know they're gonna get rusty water, then they can prepare so that they don't get rusty water or do a batch of white clothing when they're getting rusty water. So until we get these problems fixed, it's gonna take some time. It's not an easy thing, because I have to work between the engineers, with the guy that takes care of the water system, and the availability of people to come in and help us make these repairs. A lot of fellows with this equipment don't wanna come here and spend a half an hour with a backhoe to do a small job. If he comes in, most of these guys want to come in and spend a day or so they can make a buck. So it's hard to come up with something to just, so we're trying to line these things up so that we can do them all at once and get them corrected, and we intend to get them corrected before winter, hopefully. And Sue may have some to add to that, on the flushing and the...
According to my records, I believe Randy completely flushed twice. Dave flushed in, actually was April of 2004, completely every hydrant. He is scheduled to flush again at the end of October. Today, Dave was supposed to meet with a contractor. He had to look at one sewer issue and the 2 hydrants as far as repair. I don't have the report because I was away at class today, but I should have a report tomorrow for you.
And you'll get the answers in writing. I'll see you, or I'll bring them personally.
I appreciate your response, but I still, I don't know about Bill and Dick, but in April, when they were supposedly flushed, I read the notice in the paper, and I've got a lot of time on my hands now. I'm retired, and on Wednesday and Thursday, all I did was ride around town and look to see which hydrants were being flushed, and there wasn't a one flush.
Actually, you are right, the first week that it was in the paper, we didn't flush
We
them
didn't
all.
flush them,
And we
yeah.
had to reflush
The
the
following
second
week,
week.
there was another notice,
That's correct.
and the same thing I did, walk around town, roll around town, and you all know I do a lot of riding. I got almost 200,000 on my car.
That was the...
Your dirt bucket is coming out of the well. Every homeowner gets dirt in their water tanks, dirt in their
Well, I'm finding different
toilet
things.
tanks. It comes out of the ground. It gets pumped into the system, and when the system isn't being flushed or used a lot, the dirt settles to the bottom of the pipe. Then when you get a big rush, like drawing out of the hydrants on a fire truck, you're moving a lot of water and moving dirt. If the hydrants were properly flushed, that dirt wouldn't be in the pipes.
But we're addressing it.
Thank you.
Dick or Bill, did you, either one of you have something to say?
No.
Or add to it, or?
Well, I might suggest that you lease a backhoe. You got some good operators in town.
Well,
Jim's got some good operators working for him.
right, we can't, they won't let us take a town employee and put them on a,
Lease machines.
so we have to go the other
I
route.
guess too obvious a solution, I guess.
If it's easy, we can't do it, put it that way.
But when are they scheduled now to fix those 2 hydrants? Because they have been broke, for 6 months. There's no reason for that.
No,
They should be
6
fixed.
months. Just a minute, some of them have been broke right from day one.
I know, but, they gotta be dug up with a backhoe and addressed.
I know, I've been-
You can't keep putting it off.
We're not putting it on, and we're not ignoring it. So what's the last status?
Well, today was when David was meeting with, it's a contractor. I wasn't here today, I was at a class. I'll be in touch with Dave tomorrow. I should have an answer for you tomorrow on the date that it's supposed to be fixed.
What was the delay though?
No, who wants to fix them, I
As
guess,
far
is
as
who
the
are you
delay-
trying to get to fix those
Right.
water hydrants?
We tried to get a previous contractor that we used.
They're not gonna
And he
come,
kept
I
telling
can
us
assure
he's
you
gonna-
guys, they're not gonna come here from Watertown to dig up a
This
couple
guy
hydrants and work on
isn't,
today.
I don't know where you get Watertown. We're not that stupid. We're not going that far to get somebody. We got somebody right nearby that's gonna come. I don't know who told you we're going to Watertown.
No, that's not, nobody told me it was Watertown. They said they were gonna get the contractor that originally installed them, and he's out of Watertown.
Oh, yeah.
If you're gonna get somebody local, yeah, anybody can do them. I mean, you don't need
No, I
to
never-
for that,
no,
for
I-
that contractor.
I never referred to the original one. I don't think he'd want to see me right now. Is there anything else someone would like to bring up?
Can I just ask one question about this? Okay, I mean,
Yeah.
I know that you say you're addressing it, but it's been going on for what, 2 years now? And nothing is resolved. But no, my bigger concern is that the Board of Fire Commissioners addressed a letter to the town board and have received no response. They had to come to this meeting to try and get an answer, and they still really don't have one. They have a whole lot of excuses of why, but they were not responded to. When they sent that letter, they should have been responded to. A letter should have come from this board, from this town, back to them explaining what you just did, and it wasn't done. That's all, there's no response.
Couldn't give him a response because we couldn't get a definite date out of the people we were...
That would be a response. We don't have a definite date, explaining what the problem is to them, so they didn't have to come back here again to try and get the board to cooperate with these people who run the fire.
I don't think they'd like to have me give them an answer like that. Is there anyone else like to speak on that issue or any other issue?
Yeah, another issue.
That's, Jim, how far did you get on...
You gotta have equipment. You guys
Yeah,
have
I
to-
know.
You gotta have the budget. You guys gotta set the budget up.
What exactly do we need to do that?
Well, you got, you know, it's been tried with a garden tractor and stone blower, and we were just doing bridges, and that didn't work very well.
Might I suggest we use the $7,000 that we're gonna use for Christmas decorations and do something about plowing the sidewalks?
Well, we gotta check into, if we subcontract that, I mean, the legality of it.
Personally, I think it's a good idea.
We have to do all three communities.
What is the legality of it?
I don't think there's any, as far as I know, if the town chooses to, it can remove the snow from town sidewalks. I don't think there's anything illegal about it, and the town may choose not to do it for a variety of reasons. There may be something that I'm not aware of, but I believe other towns remove snow from their sidewalks, and I think that like I said, it's a judgment on the town, on the part of the board. I don't think there's anything like, oh, no, you can't do it. I think it's fine to do.
Jim and I have discussed this. Some seem to think they can do it during major snowfalls. My feelings are this: if you do it during a major snowfall, what's going to happen with the 1 and 2 inch snowfalls in between but get packed on the sidewalk, and then when it comes to major snowfall, you're unable to do it. And you gotta have the right equipment. You gotta have the right equipment to do a job if you're gonna do it. And if you're doing all three communities, you're gonna need an operator.
Well,
And that's gonna be expensive on top of, you know, I'm sure a lot of you are thinking, well, we can use town employees. Well, they're busy doing the roads, so it's kinda hard to pull somebody off my plow, tell them to do the sidewalks. So there's a lot involved. Can we do it? I'm sure we can do it.
personally, I think it's a good idea that we do it like that. I mean, yes, the business owners in the community are supposed to take care of the sidewalks in front of their businesses. But, I mean, you gotta realize that kids are gonna be walking from school, they use the sidewalks. We have a lot of visitors that come to Chazy on vacation, et cetera. I mean, we gotta provide sidewalks that they can walk on to walk to businesses. And, I mean, if we keep up with that on a daily basis, we don't have to wait till, if we do it on every snowstorm, it'll probably be 2-hour job in Chazy, and we can subcontract it out in West Chazy and Cider like we do the rec parks. There's not that many sidewalks.
Is this the first time this issue's been brought up to your attention?
No.
No, it's been brought up every year since I've been in the town official.
Are you gonna sand them also? Plow and sand?
Well, these are things we gotta check into, Dick. Once we start plowing.
You don't realize what you're getting into. How many miles of sidewalk does the town of Chazy have?
Well,
I estimated at about 9.
in just the hamlet?
No,
West Chazy and Cider.
Chazy and Chazy.
if you're gonna do it, you gotta do all 3.
Not just Route 9, you gotta
And
do
if you're gonna do all 3, you gotta decide who you're gonna do first.
To be fair.
But it should be done. I mean,
I'm not saying it shouldn't be done. All I'm saying is it's a bigger project than you're thinking it is. It's not a 2-hour project.
Yeah, you just can't say you're gonna do it.
No, it's gonna take you, I'd say, subcontracting it to somebody individual in each area would be your best bet. Equipment wouldn't be involved. It would be all done fairly early in the day.
and you gotta
If you
do
go the other route, then you gotta transport the equipment from here to West Chazy to Scioto. And you're getting insurance, you're buying equipment, your equipment's gonna break down, we're gonna have to have something to back that up. I mean, there's a lot of issues you gotta look at. You gotta look at liability.
Plus you don't have a
Like Dick
sidewalk.
says, if you're plowing it and then you get an ice storm, and there's just ice on the sidewalk, are you gonna sand it? Or are you gonna wait till the sun comes out and hope nobody falls? Because once you're committed to keeping it clean, to me, we're committed and we're leaving the door open for somebody falling with getting a broken leg. You hear it every day.
I think your only solution for total maintenance would be sidewalk district. And that would include repairs, replacements, snow removal, ice, sanding, whatever needs to be done to that.
I'm for it. Is it a good thing to do? Sure, it's a good thing to do. But if we're gonna do it, let's do it the right way.
As I understood it, when we talked about it before, it was a law. And if it's been discussed every year, why has it never been done? Why has it not been settled?
Because of, I've worked with other boards completely on it, and all this came up with no solution.
Can we get something done about this for this year?
We're doing a check on it. Jim's been checking for me and on equipment. We started, a couple weeks ago, Jim? And it's not something we let go and have ignored. We've thought about it since it was brought up last winter.
Is it a law that you have to maintain the sidewalks on a state road, the town?
Well, these are things we gotta, these are issues we gotta check, Jerry.
Well, it's been brought to my attention that Mr. Coffey had stated that before, which I find hard to believe.
I'm sorry.
Someone told me that at a previous meeting that you said that the sidewalks on a state road are the town's responsibility to maintain.
I don't think that doesn't ring a bell then, but that wouldn't be the first time something didn't ring a bell, but.
Right, I think that's where this is.
Yeah, I don't.
The legality of it.
Yeah, I could be wrong. As far as this, like on a state road, whether the town removing the snow, I doubt that would violate a law. I could be wrong on that, or if there were some legal consequences, I think that it would be petitioning the state and say, we want to remove the snow on that particular sidewalk. It'd be hard for me to believe they would refuse that.
Right.
So,
But the town isn't liable to remove the snow.
I don't believe the town, I don't believe they are liable to remove the snow, no.
Right.
So,
But the town isn't liable to remove the snow.
I don't believe the town, I don't believe they are liable to remove the snow, no.
And I think the homeowner should remove it. That's a lot of money and a lot of headaches that the town's gonna get into by getting into plowing sidewalks in 3 hamlets.
Where we started.
And getting every side street done and let the homeowners take care of it like they do in the city, unless you're gonna form a sidewalk district and tax those people more for having that service.
Where we
That's
started,
probably the right way to do it, is to form a district, and that way there, and put it to a vote. And if the people want to vote on it, that are in the district, they want the sidewalks cleaned. I know I brought the issue up last winter, and the issue that I brought up is when we had the 3 feet or 2 foot of snow, that at that point, it's a lot to expect somebody to shovel that off when the state plows put it there. In that case, I would think the town, could run a loader down the sidewalk and clean it out. But if not, then I would say that maybe the best thing to do is to go to the district, put it to a vote, and, see what they want.
this all started, the state used to come through, they cleaned all the state bridges, just the bridges, they cleaned all of the intersections. Now, some of you older people in here that are old fogies like me can remember when we had local people, Joker Lapeer and Red Oliver and Mr. Lapeer up on the Ryder Road. They made sure our town was clear. They all worked for the state. But the state stopped doing it. And when the state stopped doing it, we took it upon ourselves to clean the bridges, because we had an incident where a girl got brushed against crossing the bridge because she had to walk in the road. So we started doing that. We got the tractor with the snowblower on it, inadequate. Going back to the issue, you gotta have the right equipment. If you're gonna clean sidewalks, you gotta have the right equipment to do it. And this is how it came about, and the state denied they ever cleaned bridges, which is a lie, because I was in business down there. In less than 20 years I was in business down at that bridge. I was blind, I don't know, but I know who cleaned the bridges, because he asked me if they could put snow on my property. But anyway, we are addressing the issue.
As far as my research could find, of any, I don't think, for example, in this county, maybe someone here can correct me if I'm wrong, that there is any sidewalk districts in this county. So I don't know exactly how all the other towns handle it, or how it's handled on a statewide basis, but sidewalk districts are not common for whatever reason. So, one thing that I suggest, I don't know what the other towns do, maybe Jim can tell us, but I assume that it's not like putting a man on the moon, because if other towns are doing it throughout the state, then it's something, it may be, certainly there are problems. I think one problem that does occur in any of these discussions is, we always look at the what if this, and what if this, and what if this, and sometimes you get to these extreme situations, but it is a problem, certainly on bridges, if there are children that can't use the sidewalk in a snowstorm. That is certainly a serious problem.
Well, I have a concern about that, and this would be my concern. And you said that we're going to look into it now, and earlier this year, we reviewed this at previous board meetings. But when I was sitting here at your budget meeting last week, you were not concerned about cleaning sidewalks or the children of the community, but we were concerned about where the money was going to come for Scott's new office and the remodeling of this town hall in Chazy. That was part of the discussion, along with his new secretary, but nothing about the sidewalks. So that's concerning. The time that you spent with Mr. Spiegel up at the town garage negotiating salaries for our town employees could have been spent looking into this sidewalk issue before you got here tonight.
We have been looking into the sidewalk issue. We did not let it lie from last year. It's been a continuous thing, but that isn't the only issues we have. We have a lot of issues that we have to address. We are unable to sit down in front of a computer all day and concentrate on a couple of items.
Just so that you know, you make more time for the important things.
I know, but there are more. Okay, you'll find out.
There's more important things in our children.
Is there anything else?
Look, I think really what's context here is Chazy is a unique community. We have 3 hamlets. Look around, there's very few other towns that have, if it's not an incorporated village, have very few other hamlets. So this is not an unusual situation to take care of the sidewalks in Beekmantown, because it's just Beekmantown. They don't have, other hamlets, they have subdivisions, but not other hamlets within the town. I think that's the hard part about this situation, to be fair.
Champlain takes care of their sidewalks, Ross's Point.
Yeah,
They're villages.
Just a minute. Now, let me define this. The town of Chazy is a town. Ross's Point is a village. Champlain is a village. They have a town of Champlain, but they have a village of Champlain. A village operates under a mayor, and they have their own equipment. They take care of their own streets. They don't go out and plow the streets outside of that area. A town comes under a different classification than what a village does. So when you relate, see, you go to Ross's Point and you see them clearing the sidewalks, they actually haul the snow away. Well, they have their own equipment, that's all they do, is the streets.
Because the village usually utilizes all the sidewalks. Not the whole town, Champlain, the village of Champlain or village of Rouse's Point, that's the point here.
And Dick is correct in what he's saying about we're a unique community. What every other town has one of, we've got three of.
Well, out campaigning, I find that it's a big issue to the people of the village of Chazy, but is it as much of an issue to the people in West Chazy, or would they much prefer that the...
Not at all.
they
The
look
reason
at-
it's such a issue in Chazy is because the kids are required to walk within a mile.
That's right.
To me, that's the school's issue. Why can't they bus the kids? Beekmantown does.
That's
I
right.
live across the road from the school in West Chazy, and my kids had the option to be picked up if I didn't want them walking on the street. And that's where a lot of the issue comes from, is the kids walking on the road, and I understand that. I completely understand it. But I think for the town to get into the business of plowing sidewalks
Has the town board ever sent the school board
is
a letter asking them to do that?
Yeah,
It's not up to us to do it, first of all.
in
It's
Chazy,
their decision to make.
Right.
You need to
No,
go
but I
to them
said,
and
has the
ask them.
town board ever asked them?
No, you need to go to them and ask them.
Right.
It's not our responsibility to ask them.
When we asked the town board to go to them and ask, that this has been brought up in meetings, and that was suggested,
I was
would
just
we
thinking
as citizens
today's
ask you to do
guys.
it? Would not
I
then be your
suppose we
job to do
could,
it?
yes, I suppose we could, but I don't feel it's our responsibility.
no, but
Because
just,
the town's being addressed to say that we want sidewalks done. And now someone has said it's mostly in the hamlet of Chazy because of the school
It's a
issue.
school decision.
So, wait a minute, wouldn't you, following through on that, be the board members would try to address this with the school to see if it's a
Why
possibility?
can't you go and
The
address
school.
it? You're
I am
taxpayer.
not a representative of the town.
No, but you're a representative of the town as a taxpayer to the
okay.
school district.
Never mind, Kathy.
I mean, you're a taxpayer. so-
Never mind, Kathy.
the school's full aware of what we're after, because we called the school, and we asked them, where do kids walk from? They walk from Bill Arthur's to the school. Sue did this. They walk from the Doopy Road on Route 9 south to the school. From the Doopy Road down to Fisk Road. From the North Farm Road from Dutch's Farm.
They walk this way.
On the Minor Farm Road, they walk from Norm Brown's. This comes from the school. They're full aware of the kids walking from school, and I know George approached them about walking kids because they wanted us to put sidewalks further down past the bus garage to accommodate the walkers, because they had to walk in the road. And if I remember right, Mr. Dino's remark was, why don't you just pick the kids up? You're going right by them.
But the sidewalk clearance isn't just for the kids. It's for the community members also to be able to walk down the sidewalks. I mean, there's a lot of older people in our community that need to walk down, they can't drive cars anymore. Maybe they need to go to the store, or maybe they need to
Where
get their hair cut.
You said what to do. I mean,
Yeah, I'm in total agreement with Dutch.
That's all.
Do a sidewalk district, we need to get the sidewalks clean. Bottom line is,
You see, the thing that I didn't think about before, and it's really unfair to go to the taxpayers of the whole town and say, you're gonna, have an extra expense. So really, the fair way to do it is to have the people that live in the village more or less pay, to have the sidewalks cleaned.
No, is it unfair?
Well, I don't know, I'm asking that question.
No, all right, let me.
The other thing we can do is just to know what it would cost to clean the sidewalks, is advertise it, and what would somebody be willing to clean the sidewalks for the town of Chazy? And let's say it comes back a reasonable number, you will hire that individual to keep the snow off the sidewalks.
Let me put it to you this way. What happens to anybody that lives outside of the village, where there's no sidewalk? They come to the village, they go to the doctor's office.
They gotta walk. Yep.
They're using sidewalks.
So maybe it is fair for the whole community.
They're going to the museum.
I have a question.
Is it
I have no
fair?
problem with paying for it.
So say, like the city of Plattsburgh requires the homeowners to shovel the sidewalks, right? And if they don't shovel them, city cleans them and just puts it on their taxes?
I don't think that's been the theory, but not the practice.
So how do they?
I don't think nothing. Sometimes, like I tell you, on Brinkerhoff Street, they're not clean, sometimes.
So Chazy is not unique, is it?
No. It's a very easy say, we'll get the homeowner, we'll do this, and we'll assess him, keep the hours, he shovel the walk, no, it's a great idea to talk about, but I think in practice, it's a difficult thing, but I would say, I think that Bucket did make a good point. If you clean them in various hamlets, particularly this one here, where people do go to see the doctor and go get various other services, come to town for whatever reason, in a certain sense, the whole town benefits. Is it a perfect thing where every person? No, it doesn't. But I don't think that's ever a realistic goal.
It's got to be done every snowstorm. It can't be, you can't wait till there's 5 feet of snow and then go out and decide to do it, because it's got this much ice underneath it.
No,
You know what I do is
you gotta do it.
Why don't we do it this way? Why don't we advertise to see what it would cost to get the sidewalks plowed, custom plowed for a year? And, if it comes back a reasonable figure, we'll have to vote on it and see what happens. I'd like to know what it would take to clean the sidewalks, to be honest with you. I mean, if it's $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 for the winter, that's no big thing. Have somebody plow it. I'd like to know what it would take to clean the sidewalks, to be honest with you. I mean, if it's $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 for the winter, that's no big thing. Have somebody plow it.
If things do come to pass, that you end up cleaning sidewalks, and you take Dutch's suggestion to put it out to bid, include the fire hydrants, please. Well, last year we had a fire right on the North Farm Road. And shovel it out. And we were lucky that 5,000 gallon tanker and 3,000 gallons on the other 2 trucks put the fire out, because they were still shoveling the hydrant when we had the fire out.
That you'll get a letter. Is there anyone else? Or is it Joe?
Yeah, I just.
Got any good news for us?
Well, sales tax is still up. If you want the good news first, sales tax is still doing very well. Probably for the towns, it's close to $1 million above budgeted, so that'll be good for the towns for the year end. I don't know if you want to use it for sidewalks or not, but whatever, anyway. Gotta be careful. We're working on the county budget now, like the towns are. We'll start very shortly. Even though we raised the sales tax 0.75% at the middle of the year, social service programs keep going up. We're budgeted to go up another $2.5 million this year over last year, which will probably eat up most of the 0.75% of sales tax. This county and every county in the state of New York has a huge problem with Medicare and Medicaid problems, and it continues. The state took over some of the Healthcare Plus cost, that's the insurance the state pays for some child care and elderly care. That was only $600,000 and it still went up $2.5 million, so we're still having a very big shortfall there. Trying to address that, so that's a huge thing. Some of you have been calling. We've got the bookmobile, which seems to be an issue. People are concerned about that we may not fund that this year. We probably will, but I don't know if we have enough votes to do that, but that's an issue. Not that the bookmobile will stop, just that they want a new bus, because this one's getting old, and, but Clinton County's kind of unique with that, not that I'm trying to get out of it, of funding a new bookmobile, but we have a lot of villages, like the village of Chazy here, it's a fine library, right in the middle of the village. If you kept the sidewalks clean, they could get to it. No, I'm just but I'm just saying, that a lot of villages do, and the bookmobile in Clinton County does not get used like it does in every other community, but it does get used. So, and people are complaining it's not as handicap accessible as it should be. Those are just some minor things. And the other issue I just mentioned briefly is PJM is the company that wanted to take over the flight line, and all the terminals or inside buildings that were there. If you read in the paper, we didn't go along with that because it looked like they didn't have a surefire plan that we thought could work. They could show us no reason why they were going to build there except that they were going to repair planes, but they had nobody moving in. And as a legislator that's responsible for taxpayers, till somebody can show me some assurance that something's going to happen with that flight line, because we think that's quite a valuable piece of property in Clinton County, that let's see if we can find another way of marketing it so that we can make some use for it.
Good sense.
So, other than that, that's all I have.
Actually, the town didn't pay for those. We had businesses made donations.
A lot of businesses.
Who's gonna hang some of the businesses are disappointed in you?
Yeah, very, like some that don't even have their name on one in the whole town.
The town highway super,
We can do that very easy.
yes, they're the ones that put up the flag.
We do it, we take care of the other.
And actually, it's gotta be put into this year's budget for next year. We're not gonna have them until next year, so. And if we order them in January, we save 35%, so.
I think it's a
You wait
very good
until it
idea.
snows and these guys put them up, they can plow before they put them up. There, they can clear the sidewalk.
I just wanted to get-
Instead of
Just
them
wanted your idea.
two
I mean, didn't wanna do,
I think this.
scrap it.
Stuff.
Just so that it's on the record, I don't agree.
Anything else?
But can I comment though, then, as an outsider from what happened this summer here? I thought the soldiers or the infantry men that were on the side of the streets and stuff, as an outsider looking in, that doesn't live in Chazy, I think that looked wonderful. You made your village look very good. And moving the signs around from wherever event was going to be, people talked about that. I think that was a very impressive thing that you did to celebrate your centennial. And I think it looked very, very neat.
And the
Unique.
sidewalks were clean, right?
And we'll pass that on to the committee. So,
I think the idea of Christmas decorations is a wonderful idea. And I think when we're talking about the junk, we're primarily concerned about how our town looks. And I think likewise, it would improve the town to clean the sidewalks. And all I'm concerned about is if the price of the decorations would cover the sidewalks, I would personally think that it would be better spent to do the sidewalks first.
If in fact you need a machine, or Mr. Sessoms could use a machine to clean the sidewalk.
No, where I can.
Well, you
I'm
got
not the
it.
contractor.
We do have in the budget though, a portion for beautification, and which is where we were gonna take that money for the decorations.
Now, stop, is $6,800 covered just each hamlet?
All of,
$6,800 covered all of them?
all three units.
I'd like to see those Christmas decorations.
They're nice, they're very nice. I've seen them. They're very nice.
Okay,
I got a sample of one he brought to me, and I mean, they're beautiful.
okay. That's pretty cheap.
Yeah. But we're ordering them in January, which is off-season, so we save 35%.
Oh, it's the after
Is there-
Christmas sale. You get all the stuff that nobody else wanted. Okay.
anything else from the board members? If not, we would have anything.
I'd just like to ask people here, I mean, I just want your opinion. I mean, we're hearing some little jabs about the Christmas decorations, and I'll tell you why I came up with the idea, okay? I thought it would be a real positive for the town of Chazy, West Chazy, and Scioto to have some Christmas decorations up during the holidays. And I got a cost of 8 decorations for each hamlet of about $6,800. I just thought it'd be a nice positive thing to do for the villages. I'd like to hear the opinions of people. If you don't think it's a good idea, that's fine. I just thought it would be nice, and these things will last for years and years and years. What you do is you take them down, you hang them up. Next year you put them on the poles, you light them up. It's just a positive thing I thought of that would be something decorative for our communities. If the town, we represent you guys, if you don't think we should spend the money on it, we won't do it. I just thought it was an idea. I think it's a good idea, because this is the only town that don't have Christmas decorations. You go anywhere else, Champlain, Rouse's Point, Moores, I don't care where you go. They've
Even
got some
Altoona.
kind of Christmas decoration, even Altoona.
No, I didn't. I don't care about Christmas decorations.
Sidewalks, so you walk down the path.
Thank you.
They're a little more visible than these flags.
They are huge. These things are
Well,
huge.
because these flags, I don't know how much you spent on that, but that was like a waste of money, you know what I mean? Because nobody even notices when they're going through town. I don't know.
Actually, the town didn't pay for those. We have businesses made donations for
A lot of businesses
It's all donated.
paid for them.
Who's gonna hang
Some of the businesses were disappointed in
Yeah,
those
very,
things
like
too.
some that don't even have the name on them in the whole
Well,
town.
the town highway super,
We can do that very easy.
yes, they're the ones that put up the flag.
We do is that we take care of the other.
And actually, it's gotta be put into this year's budget for next year. We're not gonna have them until next year, so.
Okay,
Before I want to do that, I think under junkyards or under junk vehicles, what Dick Lewis made was an excellent suggestion, and those wordings should be changed. So that if a vehicle is in the yard that is unregisterable, it should read unregisterable as being, part of being junk, not just the fact, because a lot of people have cars in their yard that are perfectly able to be registered and should be able to be there. What we don't want to have is vehicles that will not pass inspection and that are not able to be registered. And I think that's fair to call them as part of, a junk vehicle.
I don't have a problem with that.
Anybody else have a problem with that, or?
Tom?
I think that's what section C says. So I think, if I hear you right, what you're proposing is to eliminate A, it is unlicensed. If you read section C, then so many words, a lot more words than what you just said, that's what it says.
Yeah.
It says, it is not in any condition for legal use upon the public highway. That's section C. So I think,
Yeah, but the only thing they're saying is, we're saying any one of the following. So if it's
Yeah.
unlicensed, that's it.
That's one clarification. Now, what I want to do is change it, not that it's unlicensed, simply that it's not licensable, licensable.
what you're
Is that
saying
what you
is-
were trying to say too, Dick, more or less?
what you're saying is
I think that's a
strike
good
A.
idea.
You're going to be striking A on this.
Well, let me see.
However you legally do it, I don't know.
No, we're just gonna change the wording.
What if you said unlicensed and meets any of the following conditions? If it's unlicensed and meets any of the following conditions, which would be B, C, and whatever. In other words, A says unlicensed. If you put unlicensed and meets any of the following conditions. So in other words, it would have to be unlicensed and meet the rest of the conditions.
Right.
The rest of them, or any one of them. It
Any of the rest of them.
doesn't have to meet all of them, right?
No, anyway,
That's what you're
in other
trying to
words,
do away
if it's
with.
unlicensed and you can go there, turn the key and go down the road, or register it, turn the key and go down the road, then, a lot of people have classic cars that you can't put them in the garage, they run them in the summer, they put a tarp over in the winter. But I'm just thinking that if it said unlicensed and meets any of the following conditions, then that would eliminate a car that was registerable.
Yeah, that's a new word invented tonight.
Hey, what's cool with that?
Whatever you're up to, right. All I want to do is make sure that people aren't penalized on vehicles that are roadworthy. Just because they're not plated.
Okay, what we're talking is under this definition of junk vehicle, and what we're saying, I guess, is any motor vehicle with an automobile, so forth, and is unlicensed. When you say any of the following, when it's unlicensed, then it would meet the conditions, so what we could say here is unlicensed and meets any of the other following conditions. So, if you've got an unlicensed one, then it's either abandoned, wrecked, stored, is not in any condition for legal use upon the highway and so forth.
think the easiest and cleanest way to do it is just to strike A. Strike all reference to licensing.
What is stored that would want
It's
to...
just sitting there.
Right,
Good.
but I mean, if you have one unregistered vehicle, you know, is stored, that means you can't have two vehicles and only one in the...
Unregisterable.
If I understand it,
Determine it's unregisterable.
if I understand it correctly, inside your barn or out of the eyesight, you can have anything you want.
Okay. I think, I'm going to retract what I just said, because what we're confusing things is this junk vehicle is simply a definition.
That's right.
It's not the law. So this junk vehicle is covering a whole gamut of things. Now, an unlicensed vehicle could be considered junk in some cases. And this becomes a discretionary judgment for the code enforcement officer. And I think that, reading it again, I think I would leave it alone. And I understand what the perception of everybody is, but it's simply a definition. And that definition applies to the laws that are in the zoning law itself. So,
Well, I think that, what it seems to me, what the discussion is, would unlicensed be the tripwire to qualify it as a junk vehicle? And there seems to be some concern that you could have a vehicle that isn't licensed and you wouldn't want to consider junk, or junk vehicle. I don't know, and I agree with Tom, that I don't know how serious the problem. It would seem to me maybe the simplest thing would be to just get rid of A and just get rid of the unlicensed issue. Because the other is, it'd still be junk if it's abandoned, wrecked, stored, discarded, dismantled. That still covers a lot of territory, and I think we're pretty safe with that.
So you're suggesting getting away the...
Getting rid of unlicensed, maybe that, I don't think there would be a problem. I'm just saying that somebody could make the argument, you got this car, it's unlicensed, it's junk, and, you know, therefore, in front.
See, Tom has a point too. When you look under the definition of junk, which, the outdoor deposit of any of the following, and it's got two or more junk vehicles. In other words, you could have one unlicensed vehicle in your yard. You're defining junk vehicle. Under the definition of junk, two or more junk vehicles. So you could have one junk vehicle in your yard. One unregistered or unlicensed vehicle in your yard. And that's not junk. You gotta have two. Once you get two unlicensed vehicles, then it becomes junk.
But we're back to my
If
issue
you
of what the
qualify.
planning board sees this as, and the planning board says they see and interpret our comprehensive plan to mean if you have 3 unregistered vehicles, then they need to be hidden. But you can have 2 and still be abiding by our current zoning law that was written on our current comprehensive plan.
Now you can have one, we should say. The minute you have two, then you...
But that's not the quote that I gave you earlier in the evening. And if anybody would like to entertain it, I do have it on tape over there if you'd like to play it.
No, you don't have to sign it. I'm just saying it's two, it's always been two.
Maybe you can let Trey talk to it.
Tom? Great.
That's right, Tom.
No, that's just a definition that has always been there. You know, nothing has changed. That's the whole thing with this whole deal. Nothing has changed at all. And that's what Tom has been trying to explain.
It's just to make it
all
easier
night.
for
The problem is-
And you gotta think of the definition of junk vehicle, it's a definition. But what the law pertains to is keeping of junk. And the keeping of junk definition is that 2. And
Two
that's
and you're in violation.
over 2, you're in violation. You're allowed to keep, in the keeping of junk section, you're allowed to keep 2 unregistered cars, 2 washing machines.
2 or more. 2 or more.
Constitutes junk.
One unregistered.
You can have one unregistered, 2 or more.
Well, I thought in the definition that I'm mistaken that it said you could have 2 of each of these things. 2 or more constitutes it, okay,
So that means one.
okay.
That's my understanding.
I'll go along with that.
Are we all set on that part?
Set on that part. The other is
That was, all right, were you gonna get into the wood stoves?
I was not, no.
Okay.
I was gonna get into the enviro. That's part of that same motion.
Well, I was gonna go into the wood stove.
Can I just ask what was decided here?
They're gonna vote on these all at the end, Jan. They're all gonna be voted on at the end of one. It's all in one.
No, she understands that, but she thinks this issue ought to be, and I agree with her, I think this issue ought to be clear enough. Do we want to make any adjustment to the definition of junk vehicle? Or do we want to leave it as it is?
I'd like to still put it in as unregistered.
You gotta have, you know.
Tom?
I say unlicensed too.
Remove unlicensed? Is that what everybody wants to do, remove the word unlicensed?
You want it removed?
It makes it clear.
If you make it,
If you leave it in, it makes
if you make it unlicensed vehicle to meet, where am I here?
Any of the following?
Yeah, if you change it, instead of saying meets any of the following conditions, it is unlicensed and ta-da. If you go back and say, if the vehicle is unlicensed and meets any of the following conditions, considering abandoned, wrecked, and all that.
Well, I think you get rid of unlicensed. We have C, it says, is not in any condition for legal use upon the public highway. That sort of,
Redundancy.
so, I think you could get I think you could remove it. I don't think it's a huge deal one way or the other, but I think we've got to make a decision and move on.
I'll support removing it, you know, remove that word.
Okay?
Remove on.
Anybody else comfortable with that? If so,
Anybody comfortable
Works,
sending
that
it back
work.
to the planning board?
You, Bob? That work for you?
not to do a small word change, we don't have to go back.
No.
Yeah, that's fine.
Half the planning board's here anyway. You have any problem with that, Tom, or Trey? Bob?
So I guess we ought to vote to just remove.
What are you gonna do?
We can do them all at once, I guess.
remove unlicensed. Just
Remove the
We're
word,
gonna remove A.
yes.
Can we do it? Any changes in one resolution?
If there's another change, we can, I guess, do them together, yeah.
You need to get a special permit if applicable. That's what they're referring to, I think, when they say permit E, or application. So if you
Where on
have
page
a-
4 are you reading this,
Page 4,
Pat? We're under
storage
storage
or
and
stockpiling.
Okay.
Let me see if I can attempt again.
Under the complaints and responses
Under
section?
storage or stockpiling.
Well, maybe we're looking at
Down to the bottom.
Down to the
Down to the
bottom.
bottom.
Page 4.
Second, paragraph.
Something different.
Excuse me.
Okay. I think the trigger here is 40 cubic yards.
This would be Glenn Carter's copy that they passed the other day. This is page 4. Can you read to me on page 4 where it says that, Kathy?
Okay, we have a
No, you
different
got
You
copy.
have a different copy, but this is the copy that you got your approval on, and maybe you guys are going back to the copy you got your denial on
I was
before.
looking on a different copy. I wasn't aware
This is
that we
what we're
weren't on the
looking at.
same page, but now that we know what page we're on.
Well, I don't understand this. If this is the one that's approved by the Clinton County Planning Board, why are we using something else for
I'm
an
using one of the
example? This
resolutions.
whole thing is completely off
I'm
the
using
wall
it under the
somewhere.
resolutions. because
I
any
really hope
changes
you guys
we
aren't
made
gonna
under
pass
the
this. This is ridiculous.
Anyway,
This is Glenn Cutter's copy, right here.
has the board heard
Clinton
enough
County Planning Board.
to make a decision here? Has everyone heard enough?
Yes.
All right.